Alright everybody, what's going on? We're going to try something a little bit experimental today. Sometimes I come across pieces or have rugs with aspects to them that aren't worth doing an entire unraveled episode or some type of long form content like that, but there's more that I could put in just like a reel or a YouTube short. So we're going to try this little series and I'm going to call it Threads. Get it? It'll have that middle of the road content. I'll get to talk about what I want to talk about without being expected to do a big long thing about it or keep it to like a minute and a half max. Which brings us to the subject of today's video, a Karapinar or Karapinar. That's another thing too. I'm about to maybe say something way out of my depth here, but when it comes to languages, it is kind of funny. I do think that especially American English will put accents on different words where they might not exist in the original language. So for example, Karapinar, it's got that Karapinar, the ra has the accent, and I think I just recently heard somebody refer to it as a Karapinar, which I think is probably more accurate. Doesn't matter, it's the same thing, it's the same rug. Say it however you want, whatever. So this piece is 3'11" by 5'7" and comes from the third quarter of the 19th century. So that is 1850 to 1875. And first of all, before we get into design or the really interesting aspects that I want to talk about, let's talk about that age. Let me give you some practical information to go on. Because 1850 to 1875 is pretty precise, right? So it raises the question, how do you get to that? Dyes, again, come up as probably the easiest way to tell age on something, especially when it's past 1900, because good dyes and bad dyes are so, when you've seen enough rugs, they are very easy to tell apart. That's like the first indicator. The other one is sometimes people will base it on sort of the wear that a rug goes through. That's a pretty kind of a dicey way to do it, because I feel like super old rugs can get pretty blown out too, but that's another way. Another way people will tell age past 1900 is sort of the quality and the designs that you see, but again, a lot of it really comes back to dyes. When you get into the 19th century pieces, pre-1900, what happens is there's sort of this sharp rise in price, especially for stuff that is in very good condition. That's the collector's market. There's people that appreciate the history behind it, as we've talked about before. But because of that sharp rise in price, it is very useful for the rug dealer to have some sort of documentation from established authors to back up the veracity of what they're saying. This is like seller talk, but it just gives you a little bit more of a leg to stand on when you say, this is from this time period and that is why it is this price. Because good stuff in an older condition is undeniably in a higher price bracket than a high percentage of post-1900 stuff. Anyway, all I'm saying is that we have documentation to back up the age of this rug in this little book, Rugs of the Peasants and Nomads of Anatolia. This is an excellent reference if you have any interest in learning more about Anatolian rugs, and especially village pieces. You should consider trying to find this. If you can find this book for, I would say, under $100. I think I paid just under $100 for this. It is definitely worth it. There's a stupid amount of full-colored plates in this book. Great information on dyes and the history of each region. I would highly recommend trying to pick this up. Now, the reason, like I said, I bring this out is because there is documentation in this book of a very similar carpet, Karapinar, to the one that we are examining today. Super similar colors and design, and there's a bit more information on how to age these rugs specifically, even outside of the dyes being used. Because the book references another work by author May Beatty that talks about one of the minor borders seen on the example in this book, which is the same minor border that's seen on our rug. And it's just kind of interesting too that in this case, we can successfully age a rug based on something in the design. Now the border in question is this main border that is a cream color and has this repeating 6-pronged motif across it. Now that reference from Beatty helps us understand that when we see this rug without that main border or a different type of main border, it means it's from a later date. So we can comfortably age this rug from the third quarter of the 19th century, which I believe is about the same dating as the one in the book. All right, so there's some practical advice for us. You know, if you're selling a rug that is from an older time period, you're gonna maybe want some reference material to back that up. If you're buying a rug, it's always nice to see that reference material and have it explained to you, or be able to see it for yourself and compare the markers of age. But that is not the reason why we're talking about this rug. It is old, it's cool and old, but one of the reasons that I'm specifically talking about it is because of one of the aspects of design that is crazy cool. The thing that I want to talk about in design is actually the spandrels. Now, a little bit of design vernacular if you don't know what a spandrel is. Usually on the medallion type rugs, in the 4 corners there is a repeated design, and those typically triangular type shapes are called spandrels in the 4 corners. And so this one has spandrels, and in those 4 spandrels are these sort of awkward looking arrow shapes that seem to be pointing out. Now, one really interesting thing about old rugs is that the weavers, for lack of a better term, were using every part of the buffalo when it came to design. That means that they're using the thing that you immediately see, the thing that your eye is drawn to whenever you see a carpet for the first time. They're designing that. These older rugs, these weavers, they're also thinking about what your brain sees, those reciprocal designs. And that's what we're focused on today, because if we look at the reciprocal design of these spandrels, something totally different is revealed. Like I said, at first glance, they look like these arrows pointing out. It's when your eye focuses on the negative space around those arrows that an entirely new motif is revealed, which I'm going to show to you now. If we take one of those spandrels and reflect it horizontally, vertically, and diagonally, a new motif appears. Because this spandrel is actually not just a spandrel, but it is 1/4 of a new design. It's super cool. So this design could colloquially be referred to as a cloud collar motif, but when we take it to its formal and geometric extremes, more motifs are revealed from different parts of the rug world. So the geometric extreme gives us the Turkoman Uzbek ghoul. And then taking it to the curvilinear formal extreme, we get the Chinese Yunqian motif. Kind of mind-blowing, because we have this 19th century Central Anatolian Turkish Karapinar, and within the DNA of those designs, we have traces to Uzbekistan and ancient China, and it just shows like how all of these designs have this connective tissue. And unearthing that and realizing that, super, super cool. I cannot overstate how much this blows my mind. I'm hoping to keep this video short and sweet. I just wanted to talk about this Karapinar. I'm working on a longer video right now. I'm hoping to get it out in February. But until then, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.